Jimin finally opened up. Jungkook didn't expect this emotional confession. Flush face, revolving hearts on an afternoon that felt different than usual, the atmosphere of the K-pop world shook again. Not because of the release of a new song, not because of the suddenly announced comeback schedule, but because of one thing the ARMY had been waiting for a long time, but was never really ready to accept. Jimin finally opened his voice. After a long period of silence, he revealed something that left Jungkook stunned, the staff stunned, and thousands of fans around the world feeling a wave of emotion that hit without warning. Jimin's confession was not just a spontaneous speech, but the result of a long journey full of stress, longing, and feelings that he had kept tightly. The confession came amid their hectic schedules, something Jimin actually wanted to avoid. He is not the type to easily express his feelings in a crowded place. But that day was different. There was fatigue invisible to the cameras. There was something that had been waiting too long to come out, and Jimin finally succumbed to the turmoil inside him. In a room filled with only a few of the production staff, as well as Jungkook, who was finishing a short interview session, Jimin came in with a hard-to-read expression. There was a mixture of tension, doubt, and a clear firmness in his eyes. Jungkook, who was still laughing with the interviewer, immediately fell silent when he saw the way Jimin looked at him. At that time, the camera used to record the company's internal content was still on. And the seconds that followed became a moment that is now being talked about across social platforms. Jimin signaled to the staff not to stop recording. Without a long explanation, he stood beside Jungkook, took a deep breath, and finally said in a slightly trembling voice, "I have something to say. Something I've been holding back, not because I didn't want to say it, but because I was afraid of your reaction. But today, I can no longer help it. It's like stopping time." Jungkook looked at her unblinkingly, as if trying to interpret the hidden layers of meaning. In a split second that felt like a long minute, Jimin finally revealed something that was completely beyond everyone's expectations. "I lost you," he said slowly. "It's not because we're physically separated or because of schedules that stack up, but because I feel like our relationship is changing, and I don't know how to say it without looking selfish. I'm afraid I'm no longer your home, but you've always been my home." Jungkook gasped. The words came into him with a speed he couldn't resist. He looked at Jimin, trying to understand whether this was a complaint, honesty, or a long-buried plea. But most surprisingly, Jungkook realized that he had felt the same way for a long time, only he chose to avoid it rather than face it. That afternoon developed into a conversation that no one predicted. In the middle of a small studio with white lights that were not too bright, the two sat facing each other. The staff who were about to leave chose to remain in the same place, not daring to move, afraid to interfere with something obviously very important. They know that whatever is going on is not content, not acting, nor professional conversation. It's something personal, raw, and honest. Jimin continued in a slightly more stable voice. "I know you're busy. I know you're trying hard to stay strong in front of everyone. But sometimes, I feel like you're too far out of my reach. Whenever I try to approach, you always smile, but I know that's not the smile you usually show me. I feel like you're hiding something, and I don't know how to ask without making you feel overwhelmed." Jungkook lowered his head, squeezing his own fingers. He's not the type to admit weakness. He grew up strong, responsible, and always wanted to protect others. But this time, he couldn't escape. There was something in Jimin's tone that pierced through all the defenses he had built up. "I didn't stay away because I wanted to stay away," Jungkook replied slowly. "I'm just afraid of overloading. I'm afraid I've told you too much about my stress, about the things that bother me, and you've got so many things to think about. I thought if I made the distance, I could handle it myself." The answer left Jim speechless. There was a flash of sadness as well as relief in his eyes. He finally found the answer he had been looking for, although it was not entirely easy to accept. "Why didn't you ever tell me that?" Jimin asked in an almost whispered tone. "Because I don't want you to see me weak, I want Jungkook to answer." But the words didn't come out. Instead, he said, "Because I know you'll care. And that makes me feel even more guilty." After that, the atmosphere was quiet for a while. But not an awkward silence, but an understanding silence. The two looked at each other, not with questions, not with confusion, but with a sense of relief that they had not realized they needed so much. The conversation turned into a longer discussion about their feelings, the pressures of the job, the changing dynamics in the group, and the fear of loss that both of them felt. They speak honestly, without filters, without shame. It's not about work, not about public image, and not about content to be recorded. It's purely about two best friends, two brothers who finally dare to open each other's hearts after keeping everything to themselves for too long. What made the moment even more emotional was when Jimin finally said something that left Jungkook speechless for quite a while. Jimin looked at Jungkook with a gentle but powerful look, then said, "I miss the version of you that only appears when you're with me. I miss the way you laugh, the way you tell stories without thinking twice, the way you look at me without pressure or guilt. I missed it all. And I don't know if I still deserve it." Jungkook closed his face for a moment with both hands, hiding the tears that began to pool. He is not the type to cry in front of the camera, especially when he is being recorded. But this time he didn't care. He felt too touched, too relieved, and too devastated to realize just how deep the emptiness he had also felt all along. "Hyun," Jungkook said in a hoarse voice, "you have always been my home. Always. I stay away not because I don't want to be close to you, but because I don't know how to behave when I feel down. But if I'm being honest, I miss you too." It was the first time in a very long time that Jungkook had said something so honest. Their conversation continued for almost an hour. No script, no preparation, no professional camera intended to record the moment for the public. But what was captured by the built-in camera became one of the most vivid evidence of how the relationship between the two never really faded. It was hindered only by the accumulated fear and misunderstanding. When the conversation was over, the two approached each other and hugged each other tightly. A hug that not only marks reconciliation, but also recovery. The staff who had been silent and did not move were moved. Some even cried because they did not expect to witness such a sincere and thrilling personal moment. After they left the room, Jimin decided that he didn't want the moment to stop as a private conversation. He wants the world to know that he and Jungkook are okay, that their relationship, whatever it may be, remains strong and unshakable by distance or pressure. And most importantly, he wanted the army to know that behind any rumors or speculation, the two still had confidence in each other. Jungkook himself was surprised when Jimin asked permission to share part of his statement in a live stream a few days later. He hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. "If it makes you feel calmer, do it," Jungkook said at the time. And so, in a live that was initially relaxed, Jimin finally opened his voice. He did not mention the details of the conversation, but he revealed that he felt he had lost Jungkook and that the two of them had expressed their hearts to each other. Army immediately excited. Many were crying, many were moved, and many were relieved because finally the truth came out directly from Jimin's mouth. Since that time, their interaction has undergone significant changes. Jungkook looks much more expressive, more open, and warmer. Jimin looks more confident and calmer. They began to appear together on several occasions, encouraging each other, and were even seen joking again as before. The fans felt as if they were looking back at their old version, a version full of color and warmth. Now, Jimin's emotional confession is a moment that not only marks a turning point in their relationship, but also a reminder that even idols as big as they are human beings who can feel fear, doubt, and loneliness. And that sometimes, the greatest courage is not to stand on stage in front of tens of thousands of people, but to open your heart to someone who means the most.